And good evening. Welcome to Viterbi Live. This is our live chat, a live Q&A with our admission staff here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering to discuss the application process and applying and transferring as a transfer student. We know we have a number of different students and some parents out there and counselors out there that have lots of questions when you're attending different universities and community colleges around the country that are looking to apply as transfer applicants to USC and the Viterbi School of Engineering. Today, or this evening, we have a few of us here to answer your questions. First off, my name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the Viterbi School of Engineering. I thank you for joining us, and we also have some of our other staff here. Christine, Becky, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Christine Shea. I'm working undergrad admission here in the Viterbi School of Engineering. Welcome.
And hi, I am Becky. I am the Senior Assistant Director for Undergraduate Admission at the Viterbi School. Welcome.
So I think our first thing that we want to do is tell you a little about our university and about the engineering program here, in case you're wanting to know a little bit more about that, and then we can dive right into our questions. If you're just joining us on the website, you can see that right below this video there is a form to ask questions. And so if you've already asked questions, thank you. We already have hundreds of questions already that have been submitted onto our website prior to the live chat. We appreciate you doing that. But we're going to be going through those questions as quickly as we can. Some of them are repeated across multiple people, which is fine. That's totally okay. But you can continue to ask your questions live directly on that form. I'll be scanning those questions as much as I can, and we're going to try to get to as many of those questions as we can in our hour. But first and foremost, for those of you that don't know, the Viterbi School of Engineering here at USC is one of the largest professional programs at USC. We have an engineering program that is incredibly broad and diverse. It offers a lot of different opportunities across the engineering spectrum: aerospace, biomedical, chemical, civil, computer science, computer engineering, electrical engineering, environmental engineering, industrial and systems engineering, and mechanical engineering is all offered in our programs. We offer over 30 undergraduate bachelor's degrees in engineering, various emphases and specializations within each of those different areas. There is a lot of information going on, and if you're looking at transferring to an engineering program, we likely have the right undergraduate degree for you. Our website that you're on right now, viterbiadmission.usc.edu, explains all of those undergraduate programs, including providing course outlines, which we're going to refer to later on when we get into some of these questions about how to transfer and specific transfer options. And you can see right up at the top up here when you look at our website, under the About section, you'll see all the different various degree programs, which you're more than welcome to pursue. Of course, in another tab. You don't want to close this tab. But open up another tab and you can see how we describe our programs and also see the degree programs. Tonight, we know you have a lot of questions about transferring. A lot of your questions are very specific and very personal to your individual transfer situation, which we can't necessarily answer in specifics over a live broadcast, but we will do our best to answer those questions and help you understand the mechanics of how to transfer, and specifically what's incredibly important about preparing yourself as a transfer applicant for the engineering school at USC, which is very different than applying as an applicant to USC in general as a transfer student. Also, what is important to understand is that applying as a transfer applicant to USC in the engineering school is different than applying to other engineering schools at other universities. And we're going to explain that difference right now in a brief summary. Christine's going to talk you through, in general, what transferring to USC as an engineering applicant is all about and how you can best prepare yourself, whether you're planning on applying for this year, for fall 2016, or for a future year. So we're going to let Christine give a brief overview, and then after that, we'll dig right into our questions. So, Christine?
Yeah, great. In terms of preparing to transfer to the Viterbi School of Engineering, we're looking for different courses than maybe the university broadly discusses. So, be prepared to be a competitive candidate to the engineering school. We're looking for you to take Calculus 2 and 2 semesters of a lab-based science, such as calculus-based physics, chemistry, or bio. And we also recommend that you get the USC writing requirement out of the way as well, which can typically be satisfied with 2 semesters of writing at another institution. So those are our recommendations. We know every student's a little bit different, and sometimes they'll have 3 semesters of math, so maybe to Calc 3, to linear algebra, or something like that. Maybe they only have 1 semester of science. I mean, these are recommendations. You kind of want to be in that area area in terms of prep, but that's where we're looking for in terms of the coursework. Calc 2, 2 semesters of lab science, and writing. Overall, in terms of units, we recommend that you have 30 units when you apply. If you have under 30 when you apply, then you do need to submit as a SAT or ACT score. But you can apply it essentially after 1 year of study at another school if you're taking the right courses. And those right courses, again, are the Calc 2 and the 2 semesters of lab science are the key courses that we want to see. There is no minimum GPA to apply. One of the questions that we get over and over again in this office is, what's the average GPA? What GPA do I need to apply or to be competitive? I cannot emphasize enough that GPA doesn't tell us anything about your preparation for engineering. GPA is important, but it does not even come close to telling us the whole story. You can have a student with a 4.0 GPA who maybe hasn't taken the recommended courses like calculus, and that's a key course that we're really going to need to see. So that's the recommended courses. In terms of the application deadline, the deadline is February 1st. And to complete the application process, and we need to see that you submit the common application and the USC writing supplement by the deadline of February 1st. Supporting documents, like your official transcripts from high school and college, can be submitted soon after the deadline, but as long as you submit the common application and the USC writing supplement by February 1st, you have met the deadline. Again, official transcripts from high school and college can be submitted soon afterwards. And so that's kind of the outline of what we expect you to do in terms of prep, and then that just a really rough sketch of what the application process looks like.
Great. Thanks, Christine. And I have to apologize on behalf of Christine. And for Christine, I know you don't feel necessarily great. You're being here. You're playing wounded. You're playing hurt. So I appreciate you coming off the DL to be here. And you know, if you have a little cough or something and you need to take a break, We'll chime in for you as much as possible. But you're doing great so far.
Great. Thank you.
So one of our first questions that we got, Camelia just wrote in as we started our thing, what is the average GPA of transfer students admitted at USC? So I just want to highlight that Christine has already answered that question, and that to also underscore that GPA, I'll put a harsher term out, GPA really isn't important. Because it's only important relative to particular courses that you've taken. So Christine has talked about those specific math and science classes. The overall GPA doesn't necessarily tell us what your preparation level is for our engineering program. I want to highlight that. I want to underscore that because I know, and Christine, Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like when we talk about this, we constantly get the same question over and over again, but what about the GPA?
Yeah, and it's so frustrating because it's like I feel like we're not getting through to you guys because it's like, no, really focus on taking the right courses, challenge yourself. You know, we like to see full-time students that can handle a rigorous course schedule. GPA doesn't tell you that. You could be enrolled in one class every semester and have a 4.0. That's not the same thing.
That's not being prepared.
Right.
Right. And so I think that also to help understand, we know that transfer students come in with various backgrounds and stories up to this point. And some of you, this is your first semester in college that you just completed because maybe you graduated high school in 2015. You're looking to transfer for your second year in college into USC. Some of you may have taken a different course in life and maybe are coming back to school, or you've been in school for a little while part-time. And maybe those first couple years you didn't really know you wanted to be in engineering. You're taking different classes, maybe didn't do well, maybe did do well. That doesn't matter. It's much more about the particular courses, particularly focused on those engineering preparatory levels. That's what we're really, really looking for. And so we need to be able to see skill sets in those areas, and that's what's important to us. Sound good, ladies?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you concur?
Yes, we concur.
Okay, good. So more of an application nuts and bolts question, because I like how we're going to handle some of those first, then we can get more into the community and our student life here and what it's like to be a student here. We have a few questions from Arlene, and Arlene wrote in and asked a couple questions, one of which I want to tackle right now, which is how many recommendation letters do we recommend to submit? And then there's another question right after that.
I'll take that one.
Was that a zero, Christine?
That was a zero. You technically don't have to submit any. We do not require letters of recommendation from transfer applicants. Of course, you are more than welcome to submit letters if you want to from a professor, from a counselor, from an employer. You may submit a letter from anyone. But keep in mind that we do read everything that you submit. I always recommend that students never submit more than 3. If you submit 10 letters of rec, we read 10 letters of rec, and they start to sound the same. There's no new information. So if you do want to submit a letter of recommendation, feel free to, but make sure you're only submitting 1 or 2, and it comes from someone that knows you really well and knows sort of your history and your interests and your passions for where you're going through your academic career.
And I want to speak to the students who are enrolled in their first semester of college right now, or maybe their second quarter. We get that you might not know someone at your current school who knows you very well, and if that's the case, that is fine. You do not need to submit a letter of rec. I think our process is sensitive to the fact that we allow students to transfer after just 1 year, and given that you might have just met one professor and really not have gotten to get to know them very well, and they might not be able to write something much more beyond what we could see off the transcript. Like, this person came to my class, they got an A. So don't sweat it. But yes, if you want to, fantastic, we'll read it, but we don't require them.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that I'm going to say this over and over and over again tonight, but that type of question tends to be coming from a background of like whether there's certain levels of points relative to certain parts of the application, and thinking that a really good letter of recommendation is going to get somebody admitted. And everyone in our audience would be surprised. We are really mainly, sometimes only, focused on the preparation for the engineering curriculum here at USC, which means that how well are you doing in those challenging and rigorous math and science classes that we've prescribed on our website? How well have you done in those? If you've done poorly in those, but you have teachers that love you, I'm sorry to say that won't necessarily weigh the scales towards a positive admission.
Yeah, I mean, we still care about reading your application and everything that's in it, but as Paul mentioned, academics tend to be the thing that we care most about with transfer students, because you're in college and you're trying to transfer to another college. So the most influential piece of information you can give us is your academic history that shows us what type of college student you are, and that we can see how you perform in your classes. That really is why we emphasize that so much. It really clears up a lot of information for us.
Cool. We have a couple questions that were repeated here. Arlene asked actually one of them, but also Zhe Yuan and a few others asked, what's the maximum number of credits that can be transferred coming across? And also, if we wouldn't mind addressing that question, and also discussing how some of the population will definitely have more than those amounts of credits, and how we're going to apply certain numbers to a degree program. And also, you should all know that having more or less doesn't necessarily mean that you're more of a qualified applicant or not.
Am I taking that?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm trying to remember all the parts of the question.
Maximum number of credits that can transfer.
Great. Okay, great. So the maximum that you can transfer in is 64. Where we came up with that number, you need 128 units to graduate from USC. Transfer students, therefore, are allowed to bring up to half of those units in from another school. If you have more, that is fine. We had a transfer student years ago. He had a ton of coursework from Bakersfield College, and I think he was close to 90 or 100, Becky? Was that close?
I think he had 150.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it was big because he started lower in the math scale. He didn't start right off in calculus, so he worked his way up to calculus and then went through the math series. So he had a lot of coursework. What USC did is they gave him up to 64 units for the actual credits that he could bring in, and what that meant was then he had 64 units to do at USC, which is about 2 years. What happened to the other courses? If there was a course that he took that is something that we offered here at USC and was the equivalent, we didn't make him repeat it. We can give him subject credit, but the unit credit is at 64. So students don't have to repeat coursework if they're over, but we can give you subject credit. But the main idea is that you got to do 64 at USC so that your degree from USC actually means something. You can't take 150 units at another school and just say, okay, I'll just take one class at USC. So that's where we came up with the 64.
Cool.
Did I miss anything else, Becky? I know you had an FAQ about that, but
Yeah, no, I think that's what it said. Yeah, basically we won't make you repeat a class. It doesn't matter how many you have. It's not going to affect your admission decision. You'll just get credit for the courses. And I think for a lot of students, especially in engineering, there aren't a lot of options for specific engineering courses at, let's say, community colleges or at some schools that might not have an engineering program. So you're not going to have taken a lot of your engineering requirements anyway, so you're going to have a lot of those courses you need to take here.
Yeah, our engineering students rarely have to just take a random elective course. There's usually enough stuff that we need you to do directly related to your major in the Viterbi school that we keep you busy for your 64 units here.
Junaid asks a question that is somewhat similar, and they ask, I only have 18 credits. Would I be able to transfer for fall?
Assuming that you're going to be taking, more units in the spring, you're probably going to be close to 30 at that point when you include those. So the answer is yes. But remember, the minimum, there is not a minimum that you need to apply. It's just the 30-unit threshold just means that if you're below that, you need to submit an SAT or ACT score along with your application. So, if there's more specific nuances, shoot us an email or give us a call if we can discuss that a little bit further. But basically, if you're under 30, no big deal. Just submit an SAT or ACT score.
Great. We have a lot of questions from some international students, and there was one in particular here regarding the TOEFL score and the minimum TOEFL score, and how does that affect the chances of admission, given that, according to Ying here asked this question, and Ying says that they are a tremendous student. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but they're a tremendous student, and they have an excellent GPA, and they do amazing things with great teachers' recommendation. What if they have below the minimum TOEFL score?
That minimum he's referring to, or the student is referring to, that's not an admission minimum. You can apply with whatever score that you have on the TOEFL. If you're below the minimum thresholds that the university has set for either the TOEFL, IELTS, or PTE exam, then that means that if you were admitted to USC, you have to take an English proficiency exam once you get here, and that determines if you have to take additional English language classes here at USC. But it does not negatively impact one way, or impact really your admission offer. It's just letting us know if you need to take an English proficiency exam once you get here.
Great, cool. So again, TOEFL score doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get admitted or not admitted. It will just determine whether once you are admitted that you have other things to do once you're here.
Right.
TOEFL is not necessarily a bearing on your admission decision, so please don't realize that it's a minimum and you should exclude yourself from applying or believe that you have a better shot of getting admitted if you have over that. Tommaso asks a really great question, and we get a few of these. And I know there's a few questions on our list of questions here regarding all these extra forms that sometimes exist in the Common App, and I think we've gotten at least 10 phone calls today about them. The college report, the midterm report, advisor report, the report of shoe size, and also the history of addresses, which I don't know, I'm making that up. But
you scared them now. They like, we missed that.
How does a student make sure that they've completed everything that they need to do for a transfer admission process? One in particular question says, I read this on your website, but I need you to confirm it. So basically they're saying they're reading it on something we wrote, but they want us to say it again. So let's just make sure that we confirm everything, and also we'll point them to the link up top that shows them that exact language.
Yeah, so there is a transfer check.
Becky was going to answer that, Christine. She was giving you.
I was giving you a break.
Oh, okay, great. No, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to soothe my partner.
Yes, we wrote those FAQs, and so we will just repeat the answers. So I believe, and Christine can correct me if I'm wrong, that on the Common App you do need to list a recommender, but that recommender actually never needs to fill out the report. You could put your grandfather's name. We're not going to be asking for a recommendation or a report from anyone, but Common App requires that you fill out that information to actually submit the application. But like we said, letters of recommendation are not required, so you do not need to submit them.
And then there is a transfer application checklist. Paul, I don't know if you can pull up on the website. We got on our website the how to apply and the transfer section. There's a checklist. That's probably what the young woman read about not needing to submit those forms. And that's true. We don't need any of the additional forms, midterm reports, anything like that. We do not need those. So that should be a good thing. You sigh of relief. There's less paperwork you have to do. So to submit a complete application, we're looking for Common App and the USC Writing Supplement. Those are two separate submissions. Both of those live on commonapp.org, and you can get the writing supplement, the USC Writing Supplement, through Common App. And then you need your official high school and college transcripts from all colleges attended, and that high school transcript does need to show a graduation date. International students, you need an English proficiency exam like the TOEFL or IELTS or PT, and then there's also an additional form for a financial statement that the international students submit.
I just put up the website so we can talk over it, but this is the how to apply website, our website that you're on right now. If you just go up to the top menu up there and click on the applying an admission link, you'll notice that links come up about applications and how to transfer. When you choose the applying as a transfer applicant, it takes you all the way over to this page and right directly to these checklists here on what we look for, what a lot of your questions are based on, what a lot of the things we've talked about so far are. What we look for, when to transfer, the recommended courses that we've already discussed, how to find transferable courses, and then this transfer application checklist, which is what Christine was referring to. This is where everything is written out. This is what's important, and we know that it's a little confusing given the Common App and some of the complications that involve a lot of different schools, but this is all that we're really needing when it comes to how you go about filling out your application.
So to answer that young lady's question, yes, what we wrote, we meant it. It's still true. We're not going to change it, so believe it.
Cool. All right. I just realized I went back on screen and I don't have a question to ask, so let me see if I can find one really quickly as I'm killing time. Oh, here's a good question. There's a few of them. Faizul asked a question related to this, so does James. And they're really asking about spring admission. How does spring admission work? Can I apply to spring? Can I defer to spring? Let's talk about fall versus spring in our application process.
So USC only has a fall admission application. Students can only apply to the fall semester for undergraduate admission. It does happen every year that some students are offered admission to the following spring semester. So you apply for fall 2016, you get admitted for spring 2017. You cannot apply for it. You can't indicate that you want that. Students apply to the fall semester, and sometimes they do get offered spring admission. I believe you can defer to spring, but that is through the undergraduate admission office. You need to get that approved, and I also believe that you cannot take any courses in the fall semester if you are deferring your admission. Once you take additional coursework, then you need to reapply because you have additional coursework that we would need to review.
Great, cool. We have a few questions related to and I'm going to pop around here because they're all slightly similar, and I think our answer is going to help clear this up. The questions are very specific about out-of-state students, out-of-state community colleges, and preference towards certain universities or community colleges. The question is, do they have a better chance if they go to a four-year college versus a community college? And also the out-of-state versus in-state issues that I think we should address, that I'll address first. Number one, we are a private institution. We are not a state school. We are not looking at any type of division between in-state or out-of-state students. We don't have any separate tuition. It's the exact same tuition per student, regardless of where you come from, whether you're an international student, whether you live in California, whether you just moved to California, or whether you're coming from Colorado, or any sort of combination between. We're a private institution, nothing in-state, nothing out-of-state. Those words don't mean anything to us. But can we talk a little bit more about this idea of four-year versus community college and how that really kind of doesn't matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. What matters is what courses are you taking while you're either at a two-year or a four-year institution, and are you challenging yourself? Are you taking a rigorous schedule of, about 4 classes a semester? That's what we care most about, and you can do that at a community college or a four-year institution. We do not have a preference whether that community college or four-year is, as Paul already addressed, in-state or out-of-state. It's about, can you take the courses? Show us if you can hack it and you can be successful in that rigorous curriculum, in those key courses of Calculus 2, 2 semesters of a lab-based science. That's what we're really interested in. So no one feel like if you're in-state, out-of-state, four-year or two-year institution that you're at an advantage or disadvantage.
Okay, great, cool. And also, there's a little bit of distinction that I think we should talk about with the way finding classes exist at community colleges versus four-year institutions. I mean, we have a longer history of articulation with the California community colleges, so it's easier for us to advise, it's easier for us to show what types of classes we know are equivalents, and with four-year universities, we have nothing against them, we just sometimes won't be able to make those more of a clear one-to-one equivalencies advisements in working with transfer students.
Yeah, and that doesn't put you at a disadvantage in the admission process again. You know, a course may or may not transfer, but we can still evaluate your application and make a decision.
Great. We have a few viewers here that are watching that are looking to go after a second bachelor's degree. And one of the questions, I forget who asked this here. I don't see if I can find it again. Guillermo is asking, are they at any disadvantage compared to the other applicants who are first-time transfers working towards their first bachelor's degree?
I would say no. We do not have any restrictions on the number of second bachelor's candidates we can admit. Again, because we are a private institution, we can admit whoever we want, and we don't have any regulations that we need to follow. And so if you are looking to get a second bachelor's degree, if you're changing careers or you just want another degree, just follow the transfer application guidelines. You have the same deadlines, the same information that needs to be submitted. So just follow those guidelines and those dates and submit all of your information. And so you're basically just applying as a transfer student because you're going to try and transfer your coursework from a previous institution to USC for an undergraduate bachelor's degree.
Great. And there is another question regarding second bachelor's degrees asking whether we have any scholarships available for second bachelor's degrees. And there are not specific scholarships for students pursuing second bachelor's degrees. That said, you're competing for scholarships along with the rest of our transfer population in general. And so just be aware that it's not something outlined specifically for you, but that doesn't mean you're at any disadvantage either. That said, there will be some things you might want to look into regarding need-based financial aid because you may have already exhausted those opportunities for need-based financial aid. Any other things we should talk about there with financial aid?
Yeah, I mean, you're right on. I mean, for second bachelor's candidates, be sure that you're looking into your really what you are still eligible for federal financial aid if you used it for your first bachelor's degree, because there can be restrictions with that. So you just want to make sure that you're looking into that. And then, you know, all other students who are able to apply for financial aid, we encourage you to do so. It does not impact our admission decision whether you do or don't apply for financial aid. But if you are eligible for it, we always encourage you to go for it. Why not? But that does not impact the application review process.
Great. Raphael asked just now, or excuse me, 4 minutes ago, a interesting question that I think would help clarify a couple things for some of our viewers. So stick with me on this one. I currently have taken 19 units. I will have 40 units in total by the end of the spring semester. Am I one of those students that has below 30 units because I had below 30 when I applied or below 30 when I admitted, so do I have to submit my SAT scores?
No, you do not need to submit your SAT scores because you're going to have 30 by the end of the spring semester. Right.
So really what we're talking about with unit counts here are at point of transfer, not because we know that you're going to be applying now, meaning that you're in the midway between your classes. So this also applies to some of the other questions like, well, I'm going to take Calculus 2 in the spring semester, does that still count? Yes, we're still going to be reviewing your application. It's not like it has to be behind that application. We know that it's a living, breathing document that you're changing things right now. And so a good number of our students that will be applying, we won't even be able to make admission decisions until we see those spring semester grades, the results of what's going on in your spring semester. So realize that this timeline is just now getting started. We're not going to be basing decisions on everything that's done behind the application, but it's through this year. The timing of our admission decisions will be kind of scattered as we're going to have an initial kind of entity of like by June 1st we're going to get our admission decisions out, or a request to see your spring grades, meaning that depending on where you are, and there's lots of things that we need to be able to do after that too. Anything we're going to add on that? And was that clear? And
no, I think it was clear.
Okay. Here's my favorite question so far. Elias, his question, Elias, I apologize. If you have a further question, you're going to need to write another one in. But the whole form just says campus life.
Oh.
I'm not certain what to answer because I don't know. What
we haven't.
What's that?
We haven't. We have campus life.
We have a campus life. He might be asking about campus life in general, and I'll go ahead and take this one. You know, if you're asking about what campus life is like here, I think that what you find at our campus is an incredibly lively campus. Students are doing all sorts of things, specifically our engineering students. First and foremost, they are very focused, very smart people that like to work hard. They are in some rigorous courses. They are enrolled full-time, so that's something we've mentioned before, is that we expect our students to be enrolled full-time, that they are going through a set of courses, working incredibly hard, working collaboratively with others, and our engineering students, different than some other engineering schools, really like to be part of the campus life in general. They're involved across the university. You can find them going to athletic events or being very involved in student life, whether those are student organizations or the social life, exploring Los Angeles, really being part of our community. USC, unlike some other universities, is not a commuter campus. This is not a place where you just come to school and you go home. This is a place where people live, they stay involved, they engage, they thrive. This becomes their home, and as a result of that, they build up lots of different communities and lots of different activities to make USC a place that they want to be proud of. And I think that there is a sort of camaraderie here that people really instill a lot of pride into this place, and that this is their family, this is their place. Transfer students are no different. While they may be here a little bit shorter than some of our traditional four-year students, they still jump in and get very, very involved from the outset. One of our questions that I'm going to transition back to our questions here is that what are some of the services available to transfer students once they enroll here? How do we help acclimate our transfer students when they enroll for their first term here?
Is that me?
Anyone wants to go.
Anyone. Sure, I'll take it. You know, one of the things we do to help all of our students, freshmen and transfer students alike, though, is when you come and enroll in your classes, what will probably be vastly different for this process at USC is that when you register for your classes at USC for the first time, you don't do it alone. We are here with you with your academic advisor, and then my office is in a room with you at the computers helping you register for your classes. Your coursework, so what you're submitting for the application, we go through before you come on campus. You know, as an admitted student, if you're admitted, your academic advisor goes through your academic history, determines where you are in the curriculum, and then helps set up your schedule. All you have to do when it comes to registering for classes is to show up, which is really weird, I know, for a lot of students who are used to running around campus and trying to crash classes just to get their full load that they need to graduate on time. The classes that you need at USC will always be available for you to access to graduate on time. Those classes that you need to graduate are going to be there. Of course, there are going to be prereq issues, so you know, if you haven't taken a certain prereq, that will probably, you need to take that before you can take the other class. But we make sure that the classes that you need are available, and what a key resource is your academic advisor that you meet with and start that relationship with starting your first semester here and a little bit before, because we bring you on campus so that you can register for classes in the summer. And then you continue meeting with your academic advisor throughout your time here every semester. We force you. You have to meet with your academic advisor to register for classes. And it's a good way to make sure that you're getting the right classes, but also to check in with you, because we like you. We want to make sure things are just going well.
Cool, thank you. Joshua is asking a couple questions. I'm trying to figure out what he's actually meaning. Number one, I think he's already submitted his application, and he wants to change his address. And then he also wants to change or add information. So Joshua, I think if you're looking to do that, you just need to send us an email with that information, and we can add that supplement to the application, or we can contact the Office of Admission at USC to possibly change that information. Secondly, how do you know what is the okay. No, I'm not.
Rewind.
I'm sorry?
I said rewind.
Rewind. Sorry, yeah, just an oddly worded thing. He wants to know where to send in transcripts.
Sure, yeah, that's a question that comes up a lot. It's the USC Office of Admission is the best place, and I don't have the address on my fingertips.
It's confusing. I had a phone call today. It's confusing because there's no street number, like number or street name, but it is correct. It will get to the Office of Admission. So if you just go to the USC Office of Admission website and look at contact, I believe it's USC Office of Admission, Undergraduate, University Park Campus, LA, California.
And yeah, it doesn't look like an address, but Becky's absolutely right. That's what confuses students. That is our address.
You probably write USC Office of Admission, and it would get there. There's only one. Well, I guess there's two, South Carolina. There's one USC Office of Admission in Los Angeles, so it will get to us.
And that also brings up another question that we often get, which is, do you have to send transcripts to Viterbi and to the USC Office of Admission? We all share the same database and share the information with each other. So if you send your transcripts to the Office of Admission, we're going to see it. So you do not need to send two of everything, one to the USC Office of Admission and the Viterbi Admission Office.
Cool. Next question, and we're rolling right along, getting through a lot of these. This is cool. Roy asked this question. A few other people asked it as well. And Roy, thanks for asking your questions. If we applied as a senior, and then we're again a senior in high school, you mean, and then also now as a transfer student, does that affect our chances of admission?
No. We have all of your information from your previous application, you know, your high school transcripts and the application, but we will be looking at your new coursework when making decisions. So we're not really going to use any of the previous information in making decisions. We will just be looking at this application, your college level courses. We will need a final high school transcript if you didn't send one of those the first time around with a graduation date on it, but that's just proof that you graduated from high school. But we will be looking at your college courses and your transfer application when making a decision.
Great. That touches on a lot of other questions, which is, do I have to send my high school transcripts? Basically, I got the questions like, do I have to send my high school transcripts if, and then they filled in a lot of different reasons. But the answer is, no matter what the if is, you have to send in your high school transcripts basically to show that you graduated from high school, correct?
Yes, there is one exception that I learned about like in my 6th year here, which is second bachelor's candidates do not. So, yeah, I was shocked to learn that too. It's always been high school transfer, but no, they actually, the Office of Admission has said that if you second bachelor's candidates can just submit all their college ones.
Okay. Nathan asks, I see that Calculus 2 is recommended, but can I just take all my calculus at USC?
No, no, and let me explain why. Because that question does come up a lot of students who say, I want to transfer. I say, yes, so follow our recommendations, and then they come back like, no, but I want to do them at USC. The issue is that you need to give us coursework to help us determine if you're prepared for engineering at USC. And one of the key courses that we need to see, or topics that we need to see in your curriculum, is calculus. Engineering is calculus-based. So we can't have you start taking calculus here. We need you to do that prior to admission so that we have something to evaluate and determine if you're prepared for engineering. So by recommended, I would say that, yeah, there are very few circumstances where we would even admit a student with just Calculus 1, but it's possible, but doesn't happen very often. So really, Calculus 2 is what we want to see for very good reason. It helps us determine if you're prepared to transfer or not. And then, of course, 2 semesters of lab-based science is what we recommend as well. I know there's variation. Sometimes we see 3 semesters of math, Calc 1, Calc 2, maybe Calc 3, and 1 semester of a science, and that's fine. But we really do like to see Calculus 2. And nearly everyone who's applying has at least Calc 2.
Let's stick on this these preparatory classes for a quick second and talk about AP courses from high school, and maybe that satisfied something at a particular college or university, including also this is the same conversation, but if we wanted you to know as an audience, AP courses, IB courses, and also A levels. Alyssa, one of our questions from Alyssa just right now, is asking specifically about A level exams and has her calculus credit through that at her university. How does that work?
Yeah, we want to see. I'm sorry, go for it, Becky.
I was just going to touch on the AP and the IB. I'm not as familiar with A-level credits, so someone else can take that over if they know. But as far as AP and IB credits, we do accept them. With AP, it's 4 or 5s. You can get USC credit. With IB, 6 or 7 on the subject tests, and depending on what the subject is, you may get a course waive. So with a 4 or 5 on AP credits or on AP tests, you can get unit credit at the university. On specific subjects, you can get a course waive. So with a 4 on the AB calculus test, you can get Calc 1 waived. You would start in Calculus 2, and I'm guessing with a 4 or 5, you would be starting in Calculus 2 at your institution that you're currently at. Same thing with IBs with 6 or 7s. As far as A-levels go, I'm not familiar. So Christine or Paul?
A-level is very similar to the AP and IB, and you can see our equivalencies for them and how we work that out. But really, it's the same way whether it counted towards your particular college or university.
Yeah, and then APs and IBs, A levels are all great, but we still want to see like a year of engineering related coursework. So I know there are some students who maybe satisfy Calculus 2 by virtue of taking BC in high school and they got a 5. Fantastic. Don't stop. You're in college now, so go ahead and take more math. Even with AP or IB credit, we're interested in seeing college exposure and college level courses. So be sure to engage, even if you have AP or IB credit or A levels, something like that. If you're done with Calc 2, great. There's Calc 3. There's linear algebra or differential equations. And for most of you, there are various science courses that you can take too, based on your major that are related. So those aren't the recommendations. Don't need to be stopping points. There's always more typically that you can take.
Great. There's a question here that I want to get back to. Okay. Alex asked, in the University of California's specific classes, wait, now I'm reading it again. This doesn't make any sense to me. Sorry. Oh, man. Here we go. Does USC? Okay. So I think what Alex is doing is that he's at the UC system, I think, somewhere. Number one, I don't know if this is clear or not, University of Southern California, USC, is not part of the University of California system.
Great.
Similar name, but we're not part of the University of California system. It's a very different program, very different set of universities. He's asking, I have these classes, it doesn't matter what they are, but I have these classes and they are my lower division requirements for my computer science major there. Do we want to see those for transfer? And the answer is not necessarily. We want to see the things we've already told you about. We want to see the math classes and we want to see the science classes. If you've taken some of those engineering classes, that's great, but it's not necessarily true where there's going to be transferable and count for equivalent class, so we don't want to advise you to take something that is not necessarily going to go towards your USC degree. In some situations, there will be some classes that we'll be able to put some petitions in later with your academic advisor and be able to get some substitutions done, but we can't ever really guarantee that. So we're always advising to take these preparatory classes to be prepared for engineering so we can have you take the engineering classes here. We're not asking you to take that much more beyond that. Yeah. Okay. There's a question here about housing, and this particular student was asking, hey, I have friends at USC, and they're already signing up for housing for fall. Should I be worried about my housing opportunities if I'm not even going to be admitted till June?
Transfer students aren't guaranteed housing at the university. However, don't be worried. This is nothing. Students, we admit transfer students every year. We bring in a class of about 130 in the Viterbi School alone. They come here and they're not commuting. Paul already mentioned that this is a residential campus. So yeah, there are things going on right now with housing. You will have an opportunity, if admitted, to submit a housing application, and I know transfer students every year who get housing. It is a first-come, first-served basis at that point, and they're prepared to have a new wave of students come in June, so that's, be admitted in June and apply, so that's no big deal. But honestly, what I often see transfer students do is they live in quote-unquote off-campus apartments. Off-campus at USC really means something vastly different than other schools. At USC, when you live off-campus, it can literally be across the street. In fact, there are apartment buildings, complexes, they're not even buildings, apartment complexes right across the street from USC, several, that look like they're an extension of USC, same architecture, really brand new and great, but they're not USC housing. They're privately managed, and those are open to you as well. So don't worry about housing. This is something that you can figure out down the road in June.
Great. We have a student here that's talking about being in a quarter system at their university. And how do we look at the unit counts for quarters? And how is that overall going to work, because USC is on a semester system?
Yes. We get students every year who transfer from quarter system, so I think we've figured out how to make all the transferring work. I believe 30 semester units equals 45 quarter units, so that's sort of the number you want to be aiming for to have completed by the time you would be enrolling at USC. You can look at our articulation histories to see how the courses will articulate. Typically, where a student at a semester school, 1 semester of chemistry equals 1 semester of our chemistry. Sometimes at quarter systems, you have to take 2 quarters of a subject to get credit for our 1 semester, just to cover all the material that we cover in the longer semester instead of the quarter that you would be taking. But those histories are up there for a history of the courses that have transferred in the past from that institution. And so yeah, 45 transferable units, quarter units is what we're looking for.
Okay, great. Daniela asked a question that is slightly worded differently, but we have already addressed this, but I want to address this particular question, asking whether do we have a prerequisite year for students that haven't done the classes that we're recommending? It's meaning, like, can we admit you without taking those classes and then make you do that? No, we can't. To be clear, when we say we're recommending these courses, this is what we need to see in order to grant admission. If you don't have those classes and you meet with us, or you're asking us right now and you don't have any of these classes, we're going to tell you it's not a good idea to apply because you're not preparing yourself for the process. If you want to talk about specifics, you want to sit down, we'll look at your transcripts, we are happy to do that. We can do that over the phone, and we can work with you or over email. But we want to see these classes so that we can determine your preparation. We can't admit you to the engineering program if you don't have these levels of preparation, because we can't understand your level of preparation at that point. So really understanding the classes that were listed as recommended are really the things that we need to see on your application to admit you to the engineering program. Okay. Here's a question from Harrison. Harrison is asking, do we have any specific advice for someone doing the 3+2 program? And I think to answer this question, I think we should give a quick overview of what 3+2 is, how that works with only a select amount of institutions. We should address our application process for those and anything else that we need to know.
Yeah. So 3-2 students, let me just briefly talk about the 3-2 program. The 3-2 program is a partnership that USC has with very specific colleges, liberal arts schools typically, that are 4-year institutions, and we expect those students who are in the 3-2 program really to start their freshman year at their school. So if you're already at another community college or another 4-year that is one of our partner schools, and you would know if it was a partner school, you can just kind of tune out for a minute. But
yeah,
for 3-2 students,
you're not at the school.
Yeah, if you're just not you're not in that process. But 3-2 students, you are considered transfer students. Follow that transfer application checklist that we referenced earlier that is on the Viterbi Admission website. Just submit everything that we ask you there. Common App, writing supplement, and go ahead and submit those official transcripts from high school and college. Those are the key things that we're looking for to complete the application. Same process that you're engaging in there. And what 3-2 actually means is that you spend 3 years at that partner school, studying usually physics, chemistry, something that prepares you for engineering, and then you transfer to USC after 2 years and finish up the engineering curriculum. Admission isn't guaranteed, so this isn't necessarily like, I know other students who are at a partner schools, they sometimes say, ah, shucks, why can't I do that? I'm sure you're saying shucks, but that's, yeah.
Common part of the lexicon today.
Yeah, absolutely. But I really wanted to do that, and when I dig into those conversations with those students more, it's usually that they assume that admission is guaranteed, and at USC the 3-2 program does not offer guaranteed admission. So no one's at a disadvantage or advantage here. That's just a different way to do engineering as a 3-2 student. And we love you guys, so yeah, as our 3-2 partner schools we enjoy, so we're always happy to review those applications.
Cool, thank you. Do computer science students, if they give you a portfolio of coding projects, would that strengthen their application?
No. I don't think so. Okay, does Becky think otherwise? I don't know.
No, I was going to say it's difficult to submit a portfolio. I don't think Common App has the capabilities to do it. Also, how we review applications is all online, so if you submit like a binder of artwork or your photography samples or something like that, we do all of our review online, and so your portfolio might be sitting in the central admission office. We don't ever get that information to review it. So submitting a portfolio is not required for the engineering school. There isn't really a way to upload it, I don't think. Or if there is, it's sometimes difficult to review. So no, we do not require it. We don't recommend it. It just makes the review process a little bit more difficult with so much more additional information. If you want to submit a paragraph just kind of describing what you've done as far as coding, you can submit that. That'll go into your application as additional information, and we can just get a background on what you've done, but we do not need a portfolio.
Yes, and I would just be blunt about it. Don't submit a portfolio. And it doesn't necessarily, you could be doing some amazing stuff according to that portfolio, but if you weren't doing well in classes, then that doesn't necessarily improve your chances of admission. So really, again, I knew I would do this. I'm going to sound like a broken record. We're interested in the classes that we've told you about. We're interested to see whether you've been taking college-level classes since graduating high school, specifically in math and science like we've recommended and prescribed, and have you done well in them? The students that have done that, we're able to admit, and they're very successful here in our programs. You don't do that, you make it a little more challenging to us. The question that's somewhat related to this, yeah.
Oh, I was just saying, I think sometimes it can be confusing for transfer students, especially those that are in their first year in college, because they're coming fresh off the freshman application process where you need to submit an extensive activities resume and portfolios and more information about all these amazing things that you've done, and where that is a little bit more focused on, where it's not really focused on at all at the transfer application process, and that's because with incoming freshmen, we are guessing. Is this student going to do well in a college curriculum? Yeah, they did well in high school, but was their high school at the same rigor, at the same level? We're transfer students. You guys are in college. We know how you're going to do in your college level courses because you're in courses that transfer. And so if calculus at your institution transfers for calculus at our institution, we basically consider it the same class. You took the same class. And so it's a little bit easier to determine. And then also transfer students, like Paul mentioned earlier, come from all different walks of life. And so we have students that aren't involved in all these different things because they are married with children and jobs. And so they don't have that time to do that. And so, again, it's much more focused on your academics and the courses you're taking and your preparation for an engineering curriculum.
Cool. There is a question here. We've got a few of them, actually. How many transfer applications do we expect this year?
I'm going to defer to the numbers woman.
We are definitely up, but we typically get between 900 and 1,000 every year for our transfer application pool.
Right. I expect over 1,000 this year. Important point, though, and this is specific to the reason I asked this now, is it's really relative to what Becky was just talking about, in that it doesn't necessarily mean that chances are harder to get admitted or easier when there's less, because the same criteria is important. We may get a lot of applications that are not prepared, and so that doesn't necessarily make it harder on the rest of the applicant pool. We need to be able to see prepared applicants. The chances of admission are not related to those subjective factors as much as they are in the first-year freshman process, that some people might be more familiar with. Applying as a transfer applicant is a little more objective. It's a little more about which classes have you taken and how well have you done. If you've done the things that we need to see, then great, we're happy to do that. It's very, very different. It's not like making subjective decisions. There was a question earlier about what if I have my associate's degree? What are my chances of admission now? An associate's degree doesn't necessarily mean, as a matter of fact, it usually doesn't mean that you're taking the right classes that we're asking for. Christine, I know you get a lot of questions like this.
Yeah, I mean, I met specifically with this girl, a young woman who was on track to get her associate's degree, and I went through her transcript with her and said, none of these are the courses that we need to see. You didn't even need to have calculus 1 completed to take them. So associate's degrees, if you want to get them for you, that's great. They do not increase your chances of admission at USC as a transfer student. We're interested in going back again, the calculus 2, the 2 semesters of lab-based science, challenge yourself. That's really what we want to see from you. Challenge yourself by taking about 4 classes a semester. That's what matters, not the associates for us.
Yeah, and associates will take you off track from what we're looking for.
Yep.
So we have a couple questions related to what if I want to study something else other than engineering while I'm there? So how difficult would it be to enroll in courses offered in other schools? Like, for example, if I were to take non-major music courses at Thornton as my elective, or even maybe minor, pursue a double major. Simon asked that question, and there's another question that was asked earlier about what if I'm looking for a dual degree? How do I note that on my application when I'm coming through as a transfer student?
So I'll talk about just the difficulty. As far as being able to double major or minor or taking courses in any of the 19 professional schools at USC, you are allowed to, you are encouraged to. About 40% of engineering students are pursuing a minor, usually in something other than engineering, so music, theater, business, political science, Spanish, depending on what their interests are. And so we strongly encourage our students to take courses outside of the School of Engineering. Minoring you can usually do in the same amount of time that you would have taken to graduate with your degree. If you are interested in double majoring, you can do that. You just need to understand that that might extend your time at USC. It's more than likely going to extend your time at USC, sometimes by just a semester, sometimes by a full year, depending on what your second degree is. You're basically adding 32 units of degree coursework in something other than engineering. So that's going to be about a full additional year of college to get that second degree.
Great, thank you. Sorry, just reading another question that didn't make sense to me, so I'm going to skip it because I don't get it.
Well, while you're looking for a question, I think there was another part of that question, which was how do you indicate double majoring on the application? Yeah, you got to choose. Yeah, you got to choose your first choice major and list that as your first choice major. You can add a second major once you get here, but when you apply for admission, you're applying to one degree program. So you got to choose one, even if you're split 50-50 on them. You got to choose one, and you can put in the application when you respond to the questions what your ultimate goal is. That's fine, but you need to list one major as your first choice. And if you're admitted to that, if you're admitted to USC, you're admitted to one major. Then as a current student, you add minors or a second bachelor's degree.
How much does legacy play into the admission decision? And I think I want to ask it that way. The question was not worded that way, but that's what I'm going to ask. Like if I had a sister that went to school there, or if I had a cousin that happened to go there for an exchange semester, is that going to affect my chance of admission? The reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of articles on newspapers that are talking about legacy, and let's put a lot of this to rest really quickly.
I would say it's information that we collect on the application, but if you are not admissible to USC, it will not get you admitted.
Yeah.
That's basically the bottom line.
Yeah, the answer is the same answer that I said I'm going to repeat over and over again, which is it's about the classes that you've taken and the preparation that you have. So it's not really going to play in. And this is a similar question, or it's an interesting question, but it's going to have the same answer. Or similar answer. Eitan asks, how much do extracurricular, internship, and other experiences weigh into transfer admission compared to GPA?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like we mentioned before, I mean, we're really interested in, well, first of all, GPA, I'm going to just rephrase that and say, academic prep, like have you taken the right courses or not. But being involved, being the president of MESA or another STEM organization or anything, whatever it is, does not take the place of doing the recommended courses, Calculus 2, 2 semesters of lab-based science, challenging yourself by taking about 4 classes a semester and doing well in those classes. That's what we really want to see. And I have met with students who are not doing as well in their classes because they are so over-involved. And they say, but what about this? And, we don't want you coming here at USC struggling in the same way and not doing well in your coursework. So show us that you can hack it by doing well in those courses. And that's gonna be where you want to be in terms of being a competitive applicant.
Cool. There was another question earlier, I think Jake asked it, which is if I'm a transfer student, what programs are open to me inside of computer science? Like, is it possible for me to do computer science business? And is it possible for me to do the progressive degree program, which for those that don't know is the opportunity to continue your education and complete a master's degree in as little as just 1 extra year?
Yeah, I'll answer the first part. I'll let Becky talk about PDP, I guess. But there is a rumor out there that computer science business is not open to transfer students, so that keeps on getting repropagated out. It is open to transfer students.
All of our undergraduate degree programs are open for transfer students.
Yes, all of them. And I'm only speaking specifically to CS business because that's one that keeps coming up, and I've heard other people say that incorrectly, that, oh, it's not open to transfer students. It is. That is a major that we own in the Viterbi School. All of our 30-plus majors and areas of emphasis are open to transfer students.
Absolutely. I don't know where that rumor came from, but let's put it to rest. You can apply to transfer into computer science business. I don't know where that came from. please tell everyone you know.
Yes.
That is possible, whoever's
Yes.
watching. PDP, Becky?
Yes, transfer students can apply to the PDP program. There are some requirements, but you would just work closely with your academic advisor to make sure you're following, taking the number of courses that you need to take, being where you need to be as far as credits and that. But yes, transfer students are able to pursue the PDP program, which for those of you who don't know, it's a progressive degree program. It's what would typically be a 5-year bachelor's master's. So for traditional students that start at USC, they do their 4-year undergrad and then add an additional year for a master's degree. So for transfers, you would be here as long as you would be here for your undergrad, and then 1 additional year typically to complete your master's.
Yeah, and let's be clear, that's something that you apply for once you're a current student at USC. You don't have to worry about applying for PDP now, and that might have been an earlier question about dual programs too. That progressive degree program you take care of as a current student.
That could be, yeah, you're right. I probably read that wrong. Thank you for clarifying that. All right, well, we have just crossed the 5 o'clock mark. I think we've handled pretty much all the questions. Some are worded in different ways. If you have a specific question or something that you'd like to discuss, you can always just give us a call.
No appointment necessary.
No appointment necessary. You do not need to set something up. Of course, what we do not recommend is just dropping by, because we may or may not be here. But give us a call. You can send us an email. Our email address is viterbi.admission@usc.edu. The more specific you are with your questions, the better. Sometimes we get questions that are just missing context. They'll ask something like, do I need to take this class? And then we have to go back and forth with you and ask you, what college are you attending? What major are you pursuing? So make sure that you include things like maybe unofficial transcripts with your academic history, what course you pursue, what major you're intending to pursue here at USC, whether you're applying for fall 2016 or a future term. Those types of things are helpful to us so we can better advise you and be a little more efficient. We don't want to waste your time. We want to be able to help you. You can always email us. You can always call us at 213-740-4530. That number is open during regular business hours from 8:30 to 5 on Monday through Friday. Again, if you leave a message or you send us an email, give us a couple days to reply back to you, especially right now because I just advertised this on a public site with hundreds of people watching. You're probably all emailing us right now. So please just give us a minute to get through those. My other next point of recommendation is do not email multiple people with the same question. It will cause us to slow down the response because we need to figure out who is going to answer them. If you just send it to viterbi.admission@usc.edu, we can manage that and get back to you even faster, and will not be very confusing for us.
And Becky and I always assure people, real people look at that inbox. It's one of the 3 of us, so you're looking at the people who check that inbox. So it's going to us.
Yeah, we're looking at it. It's not a machine. We're actually going through it, and then we can get back to it as quickly as we can. We know that applying as a transfer student is different at every university, and we know that this process is stressful, but I know that in working with our students for quite some time and also understanding how the process works at other universities, most of the things you're worried about really don't exist in our transfer process. It is very simple to the point. We want to help you transfer you here to USC if you have the preparation as we have prescribed, and we want to get you here as soon as possible. We don't have those types of minimums that want to make you wait 2 years in another institution. We want to get you here so you can absorb yourself into the community and do well. Our transfer students at USC are almost always very, very successful in our student groups, and we want to make sure that we continue that trend. We know that there's a lot of you out there that want to come to USC, and we want to bring you in as much as we possibly can in any given fall semester. So with that, we look forward to receiving all of your applications. The application deadline is February 1st, so make sure you complete the Common App along with the supplemental questions that will be part of that application for engineering. We want to be able to get that information to us so we can start reviewing those applications. Again, you won't hear from us till a little bit later. It takes a while for us to review those applications and get those decisions, but we will be back in touch with you either with an admission decision or a request for spring grades by June 1st. A question that came up earlier is, what if I don't have my grades by June 1st? Well, get them back to us as soon as you can. That's when we're going to request them from you. But just keep in mind that if you did get that request and you got your spring grades back to us right away, realize that we have a number of other people that will be getting them back in the weeks following. So sometimes students will not be admitted until we get into the July area once we request those spring grades. So we're going to do our best, but we want to make sure we're giving everybody an equal opportunity to get in that information. So it's going to take a while. We're going to be working with you personally. We're going to be working with you as carefully and closely as we can. And with that, thank you for tuning in to Viterbi Live. We appreciate it. Good luck with all of your applications. Make sure you continue to work hard at whatever colleges and universities you're at right now. And if you apply and get admitted, we look forward to seeing you this fall as a transfer incoming student to the Viterbi School of Engineering. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye on.
Right on.